All right, let's jump right in. Today we're talking about the early days of the Republic of Texas. And let me tell you, winning the revolution, that turned out to be the easy part. The real fight was just getting started.
So, let's kick things off with the huge, central problem facing this brand new republic. I mean, think about it. You've just won your independence, you've even captured the enemy's president, Santa Anna. You've basically declared game over. But what happens when your enemy just looks you in the eye and refuses to admit you won?
Well, it all boiled down to this one piece of paper, the Treaty of the Lascaux. And on the surface, it looked like a slam dunk for Texas. You know, the war is officially over, all Mexican troops have to leave, and Santa Anna himself promises he'll never take up arms against Texas again. Sounds perfect, right? But, and this is a huge but, Mexico basically tore it up. Their argument? Santa Anna signed it as a prisoner of war, so his signature meant nothing. As far as they were concerned, the treaty was invalid, the war was still on, and Texas was nothing more than a rogue state.
And you know, the trouble wasn't just coming from Mexico. The new Republic of Texas was a mess internally. So many Texans were absolutely furious. They'd lost loved ones, they'd seen horrible things, and they wanted justice. For them, that meant executing Santa Anna. So can you imagine their outrage when their own leaders decided to just let him go? It created this massive rift, threatening to tear the brand new nation apart before it even got on its feet.
Okay, so into this chaos steps the first president of Texas, the famous Sam Houston. And he took a long, hard look at the situation. The country was broke, its people were divided, and Mexico was breathing down its neck. He knew that one more big fight could be the end of them. So his whole strategy was basically, let's just survive. His entire vision was about finding some stability and peace, not looking for more trouble.
Now, what's so fascinating here is the tale of Texas's first two presidents. It's like night and day. On one side, you have Houston, who's all about peace with Mexico, fixing the economy, and just generally trying not to poke the bear. And then you get his successor, Mirabeau B. Lamar. His plan? The complete opposite. He wanted to confront Mexico head-on, grow Texas into a massive empire, and peace, well, that wasn't really on his agenda. This clash of visions is really what defined these wild early years.
But Houston's goal for peace? Man, was it an uphill battle. For starters, the Texas Army was basically a bunch of guys who were just itching for another fight, and they were led by a general named Felix Houston. So President Houston tries to get rid of him, right? He appoints a new guy, Albert S. Johnston, to take over. And what does Felix Houston do? He challenges Johnston to a duel, shoots him, wounds him, and just keeps his job as commander. It's unbelievable. He's openly defying the president and the entire government's policy.
And that spirit of aggression, the very thing Houston was trying to stamp out in his own army, was exactly what the next president, Mirabeau B. Lamar, was all about. For Lamar, just surviving wasn't enough, not even close. He had this grand vision of a Texan empire that would stretch all the way to the Pacific. His presidency wasn't going to be about peace and quiet. It was going to be about war and expansion.
So you might be asking, how did he plan to justify all this? Well, he went straight back to that same controversial Treaty of Velasco. He made this incredibly bold claim that the treaty set the Rio Grande as the southern border. Now, if you trace the Rio Grande all the way up, it means that Santa Fe, the capital and trading hub of New Mexico, was technically, in his mind, part of Texas. It was a massive, audacious claim.
And Lamar didn't just talk the talk. He decided to act on it. He put together this expedition of soldiers and merchants and sent them all the way to Santa Fe, hoping to persuade the locals to join the Republic of Texas. And it was an absolute, unmitigated disaster. The whole group got lost, ran into the Mexican army, and surrendered without even firing a shot. They were all captured and marched off to a prison in Mexico. Just like that, Lamar's grand imperial dream completely fell apart.
Okay, so with all this chaos at home and a very angry neighbor next door, you can see why Texas desperately needed some friends on the world stage. The whole survival of the Republic hinged on this idea of recognition, getting other countries to officially say, yes, you are a legitimate nation. And this wasn't just about pride, it was about survival. It meant they could get loans, establish trade, and maybe, just maybe, get some protection.
And this really illustrates just how alone Texas was. I mean, you've got Mexico, which is obviously hostile. But then you look at the big players, countries like Great Britain, and they're super hesitant. Why? Because they didn't want to tick off Mexico, which was a much bigger fish in the global trade pond. So for a long, lonely time, Texas was really out in the cold.
But then, finally, a breakthrough. France steps up and becomes the first major European power to officially recognize the Republic of Texas. You can't overstate how huge this was. It was a massive diplomatic win. It meant Texas wasn't alone anymore. They had a powerful friend and, most importantly, a stamp of legitimacy.
But just as Texas was celebrating, they got some really bad news. It was like one step forward, two steps back. Because at the exact same time, Great Britain, the biggest naval power on the planet, was actively arming their enemy. They were selling state-of-the-art warships to the Mexican Navy. Suddenly, the threat of an invasion from the sea became very, very real.
So, we've talked about dueling generals, disastrous expeditions, and these high-stakes international games. It's a great story. But let's bring it home. Why does any of this matter today? What's the real lesson from this crazy, unsettled period in history?
Well, here's the big takeaway. Just winning a war on the battlefield doesn't automatically create a country. The story of the Republic of Texas is the perfect example of this. It shows that getting other nations to recognize you, to build strong relationships with you, that's what's absolutely crucial for your security and your economic survival. And that's just as true for a new nation today as it was back in the 1830s.
And that leaves us with one final big question. One that really gets to the heart of that debate between Houston and Lamar. It's a question that leaders all over the world still wrestle with. When you're trying to build a nation, what's the smarter play? Do you focus inward, pursuing peace and stability like Houston? Or do you focus outward, trying to project power and expand your influence, like Lamar?